Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. So today I decided to share a game with you, and it's a game from the Chess Olympiad in Batumi, Georgia of 2018. You have been asking me about the Chess Olympiad, what are my thoughts, who is going to win. So I wanted to reflect on the Chess Olympiad, a couple of thoughts about that, and also to share with you this beautiful game that I stumbled upon and to share my insights and what I actually think about the game. So let's start. First and foremost, at the moment while I'm recording this video, 6 rounds have been played and in the lead we have 2 teams. So Poland is the first of the teams, actually, after winning a game yesterday against Ukraine. Duda Jan Krzysztof, who surprised everyone when he beat Alexander Grichuk in that speed chess event for chess.com, now beats Vasily Ivanchuk, and as the sole winner in the whole team, and every other matchup ended up in a draw, Poland manages to win and keeps the straight record of 100%, 6 out of 6. And they are playing on the first board, let's call it the first board, against Azerbaijan, the team who is one of probably the favorites to actually win the Chess Olympiad, managed to win all of the games, having a very, very strong team consisting of, we have Timur Rajabov, we have Shakir Mamedyarov, Safarli Altay, Naidic Arkady, and of course Rauf Mamedov. Having a team which played 6 rounds on 4 boards and managed to lose only 1 game on one of the boards. So that is an extraordinary result, and now we know why are they the first. So yeah, definitely a very close matchup. It is very interesting, so if you have a chance, definitely track the live coverages. And one other thing that I would like to mention is, because this is particularly close to my heart, Croatia is playing this time on the second table against the United States of America. So the United States, who are rated first, having Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So, Hikaru Nakamura, Sam Shankland, and Ray Robson. My guys, my countrymen are playing against them, and I would like to take this opportunity to wish them luck and try to surprise us, like the football team did over the summer. Try to do it as well this time in chess. That being said, let's get back to this game. So this is actually a game from round 2, where Scotland played against Netherlands, and we have Andrew Greet, the international master from Scotland, playing against very well-known Anish Giri, one of the top players in the world. So let me show you the game. So the game starts as follows. We have d4 played by Andrew, and we have d5 response by Anish. So d4 pretty much played all the time, and most of the games I've analyzed up until now have been played in d4 as of lately. And Anish doesn't play knight to f6, he plays d5, c4, e6, queen's gambit declined, knight to f3, and now knight to d7. Don't let that fool you, so it's just a different move order. He will definitely play knight from g to f6 and then see where will he develop the dark square bishop. Knight from b to d2 and now knight to g to f6 as previously mentioned. g3, going for the Catalan-like structure, and now b6. So Giri doesn't want to allow white to have the only advantage of having a light square bishop on this very important diagonal. He also is preparing the bishop on b7. Bishop to g2, bishop to b7, and now castles. We have bishop to e7, just simply continuing with the development, b3, castles, and bishop to b2. And we enter in a sort of like symmetrical but diagonal position, where both of the players have a bishop on this sorry for the white, kind of missed the arrow there, have bishops on this very strong diagonal, which is very important. A lot of the battle would be led around this d5 square. As you can see, a lot of pressure is on it. Black would also like to have this bishop open up to actually have the attack on this side of the board, while black on the other hand would like to open up the position, because going out of this opening, black is always the one feeling a little bit cramped in. So if he manages to push c5 or e5, that would mean a lot to him. So Giri starts with rook to e8, a pretty standard move, and we have a rook to c1. So if the pawn captures, this rook is the one on the semi-open file pulling out pressure. c5, a very important move, going for the center, and here Andrew makes the first decision. He captures immediately on c5. And Giri responds, pawn captures on c5, because he is hoping that he wants to go for a position where he would have very strong pawns in the center of the board. Knight to e5, and Giri decides immediately to take advantage of that. First, he captures immediately, bishop captures on e5, and now queen to b6. So moving the queen out of the way so that the rook can come on d8, and not just that, also being able to maybe push d4 at some point, and defending the bishop on b7, so that this pawn isn't pinned. Even when rook comes on d8, you can capture on c4, so making a lot of opportunities. This queen to b6 is definitely an important move. e3 is played to stop d4 immediately, and we have a rook coming to d8. Now pawn first captures on d5, pawn captures on d5, and now queen to c2. So going out of the options that the pawn captures or something else, but at the same time leaving these two pawns that could potentially become something of them. So definitely a strong center here for black, and since the queen moved from this diagonal on d1 to h5, come to c2, Giri takes the opportunity to play knight to g4. And okay, knight to g4, pretty standard move, playing a development move with the knight, maybe being able to transfer the queen on the other side of the board, makes Andrew think. And here Mr. Greet has two options. Does he want to leave the bishop on this diagonal, or does he want to keep it on this diagonal? And it is a very important decision which would define the course of this game. And in my opinion, my personal opinion, Andrew here, Mr. Greed, decided wrong, and he decided to play bishop to f4. It is much more natural to keep the bishop on this diagonal, having this very strong slice with the bishop and with the queen on these two diagonals, and maybe have them for some kind of an attack. But Greed decided to keep the bishop here, and to what extent we unfortunately didn't find out in the game, and I didn't see it in the interview. So immediately Anish tries to keep on the pressure. So what is the problem with this bishop? Because of this setup of these pawns and the bishop, he looks like a pawn, and he doesn't have a lot of squares to go to. So immediately h6 is played with an idea of playing g5, and then the bishop is simply trapped. White would be losing this game. So first h3 is played, attacking the knight. Knight goes back to f6, and it seems that instead of bishop to e5 and going back to bishop to b2, maybe trying to fix the mistake, Greet decides to play e4, thinking that this is the only option how to actually go further with the position, allowing the bishop to actually come to e3. And now Anish contemplated a couple of moves. This is actually the move that he thought that led to White's downfall. He knows that he can simply play d4 and have a passed very strong central pawn, but he decided to play first knight to h5 because he doesn't have to be in a hurry. If here White captures, he has knight to f4, pawn captures on f4, bishop captures, rook captures. Having this messed up situation with the pawns in front of the king, and the black is definitely positionally better. So here after this we saw bishop to e3 first, and now d4. So this is played with the tempo. The bishop is attacked. The only move that you can play, since the bishop cannot go anywhere, you have to play knight to c4 to allow the d2 square to play the bishop to. The queen is attacked. She goes to g6 on the part of the board where you can attack the king, and now bishop to d2. And now one of the main reasons why I wanted to show you the game entered the brilliant mind of Anish Giri. Anish shows why he is potentially one of the strongest players in the world, definitely in the top 10. He plays a move bishop to h4. And now it is only left for the spectators to think about the move and then just simply, I don't know, appreciate the beauty, I should say. Why bishop to h4? Simply because first and foremost you have to think about that this isn't a move that many players would think about immediately. So playing bishop to h4 in this kind of a position, of course everyone would think about sacrificing on g3 the knight and the queen, but you know that it isn't enough. If you do just that, then the queen is on g3 and there are no other moves. White is very able to defend himself easily. But one thing that is certain is that there is a certain beauty in the position, because the queen is already on the g file, and if there wouldn't be a pawn, so we are just thinking on this, yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, but we are still thinking about it. If there wouldn't be a pawn here, it would be nice because the bishop could come, this bishop is pinned in combination with the rook. Yeah, it could work, but to actually make that work, you have to find a beautiful moves such as bishop to h4. And the beauty is that this move works in every occasion, because for now this pawn is attacked a couple of times, and you cannot simply capture the pawn, capture the bishop. If you do that, bishop captures on e4, this bishop is pinned and the queen is attacked. You are forced to capture the bishop, rook captures on e4, this pawn will fall, the material and the positional advantage is too big for black. So definitely this bishop cannot be captured, but can you play something else? For example, g4, then once again, bishop to e4 is coming, the queen is attacked. If you decide to play something like, I don't know, bishop to e4, simply capturing here in the center wouldn't bring much for white. So you should simply move the queen, and here knight simply moves back to f6, and there are threats on this side of the board, capturing on g2 and everything. Definitely white is better. I mean, here if you go and capture, rook simply can't capture, this pawn is pinned, you cannot capture the knight. Maybe even rook to g4 could be considered a move, having continued with the attack. So none of these moves would be considered good, and the one thing that is a problem throughout all of this is definitely this pawn on e4, which is now attacked 3 times. So white needs to defend it, rook from c to e1. But now the other thing that you have to do, what happens if white doesn't respond to a threat? You need to make more threats, and Giri definitely does. He captures with the knight on g3. Pawn captures and bishop captures. So giving up a piece for 2 pawns, not bad for a moment, but still there is a problem of this pawn. And not just that, this rook is attacked. If you want to move it from this file, then the threats are all the same, capturing on e4, moving the bishop, and maybe even going for a checkmate. Having the having the rook moved is impossible. If you move it to e2, d3 is coming, forking the queen and rook. So what you need to do, you can just leave the rook be. So bishop to a5 was played, attacking the rook, but simply rook to d7, queen to d3, and now bishop captures on e1. Rook captures on e1 and f5. So the beauty of the position from black's perspective is still the problem of this bishop on g2. Coming back to that idea after bishop to h4 was played, thinking about the situation where the queen was actually pinning the king, and this whole idea was made possible just because of this bishop to h4 move. So you gotta appreciate that move a little bit, and I'm trying to emphasize it even more. Here f5, of course, the best move in the position, because it doesn't allow pawn capture because of queen to g2 symbol checkmate in 1. So once again, having these 2 rooks on the 2 most important files, having this bishop on this very strong diagonal, and the queen pinning it, black's pieces are just playing beautifully together. So white here played king to h2, and after pawn captures on e4, queen to g3. So that was the whole point behind this move. Queen captures, king captures, and now rook to e6. And why not the pawn push? Because, for example, if you play e4, then e3, sorry, rook has to capture, and knight to d6. You're forking the 2 rooks. So rook to e6 would be potentially stopping such a move. Also, if you play d3, then you're allowing moves such as bishop to d2, knight to e3, kind of blocking the pawns, and then it would be a little bit harder for black to actually continue. So Giri decides to not push the pawns yet. This is a very strong center, a very controlled center, so he plays rook to e6. Rook to c1, and now bishop to d5, centralizing the pieces, bishop to f1, and now rook to f7. A very nice move, now threatening to play rook to g6, and this king is slowly but surely going to the edge of the board. Bishop to e2, and now rook to g6 check. King to h4 was played. If you play rook to king to h2, then rook to f2 check, king to h1, e3, bishop covers, and this is checkmate. So this is why having this bishop on this diagonal is very important. You keep the king here, and there are a lot of potential dangers that could happen. So here, instead of playing to h2, king to h4 was played, and now rook to g2 attacking the bishop. Bishop to g4, and rook simply captures on a2, grabbing yet another pawn. We have bishop to e1, rook to f1, now pinning the bishop, and now knight to e5. So knight to e5 was sort of a desperate move by Grid here, decided to maybe try something last, like a last resort with the bishop, the knight, and the rook after he captures on c5, because otherwise Giri is just picking up pawns, and it is just a matter of time when he will start the push of the pawns and have a queen. So here we saw bishop to b3. Giri thinks that he is in no danger in this position. He can simply grab another pawn. We saw rook to c5, and now leaving the bishop. So Giri simply captures, and rook to c8. King to h7 and bishop to f5. And it seems maybe for a moment that black is in some sort of danger, because all of the pieces are working beautifully together for white, and the only move that you can play is here g6. But Giri once again proves why he is in the top 10. He calculates this without a mistake. Rook to c7, king goes to g8, and now bishop to g6. To potentially get rid of potential threats, he plays rook to g2 to essentially just give up a piece, his rook for another piece, and then simply it wouldn't be enough for white to checkmate with two pieces. It would need a rook, but that would be too slow because of the pawn push. So here knight to g4 was played to block in the rook attack to the bishop, but simply now rook to g4, king captured on g4, and now the pawn push starts, d3. Rook to d7 isn't possible to cover the pawn because of bishop to e6. Rook to c8 and isn't possible to come to d8 because of king to g7. So literally this pawn is unstoppable, and you cannot prevent d2 and d1. So Grid decides to go for one final try, which is king to h5, d2, king to h6, and after a move king to f8, finally Mr. Grid resigned the game. And why did he resign? Of course, he probably hoped that Giri would play d1 queen here and fall into this idea of check and checkmate. But of course, Giri stayed focused until the end of the game. Yeah, here he played king to f8. If, for example, you can give a couple of checks, but you cannot give a very important check on f7, and then try something with discovered checks. So this bishop is covering it. You can give a check here, but the king simply escapes, and this is a winning endgame for black. So yeah, this is a game I wanted to show you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you know of some other games that you would like me to cover, please do mention them in the comments down below. That being said, I like you enjoyed this game. Please head on to watch the live coverages of the chess Olympiad of Batumi, Georgia. They are very interesting. Things are heating up. We have a lot of teams very close to each other, so every match is important. That being said, as I've said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I would like to thank you for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!